So, welcome everyone to our webinar, Reinventing Customer Service, Your Secret Sauce for More Sales. This webinar is a partnership between HelpScout Tribe and OnePageCRM, and we are so excited to have you all here. My name is Leticia, and I'll be your host today. I'm representing OnePageCRM, which is an action-focused CRM, which means we transform the complexity of a CRM into a to-do list. And I'll be giving tips here and there, but I will be mostly facilitating the conversation between our customer service experts. So first there we have Ken Tong, Director of Customer Success at HelpScout. Hi, Ken.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here.
And for anyone that is not familiar with HelpScout, HelpScout is a dedicated customer support platform for growing businesses. And we also have Ari Diamond, Director of Customer Success at Tribe. Hi, Ari.
Hey, it's great to be here, everybody.
Yeah, and Tribe is a customizable community platform. So it's great because they're not only experts in customer service, but they also they represent companies that are all about customer service. So we have a good webinar ahead of us. So let's just have a look at our agenda for today. So first, we will be looking into identifying commercial opportunities. Maybe, your team is always just focusing on the sales team looking for commercial opportunities. And in your inbox, there might be lots of opportunities there that your customer service team can be working on. Also, leverage feedback to reduce churn. Negative feedback is always hard to take, but there's definitely something you can take from it. Also increase customer value with touch points. The relationship with a customer doesn't end after the sale is finished, and we're going to show you how customer service can help you nurture those relationships. Also, how to create a community to engage your customer base, and finally, automate and become more productive. So we're going to show you some tips and tools for you to save some time. And at the end, we're going to have a live Q&A, so don't be shy. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, pop them there in the Q&A and we'll be going through them. And if you have a specific question for Ken or a specific question for Ari, just put their names in as well, just so we can direct the questions to them. So before I pass it on to our experts, I just want us to have an overview of why you should be investing in customer service. Sometimes it's hard for businesses to just connect the dots between profit and customer service. They think that this is more about the sales and all that, and customer service is doing that maintenance. But there is definitely value in customer service. And the first thing that investing in customer service can bring you is a higher retention rate. And I'm going to release there our first poll because I want to know from you guys if you think that customer retention is one of your main obstacles. Because as you can see in there, 61% of businesses say that customer retention is their biggest obstacle. Now, even if that's not one of your biggest obstacles, there is still value to investing in customer service and in trying to get that higher retention rate. Because as you can see here, even a small 5% increase in customer retention can generate an increase in profit of 95%. So, a small investment there can really give you a good return. So definitely valuing that. The second thing we have there is increased customer value. So your customer service can really help nurturing those relationships with customers and making them into loyal customers. And loyal customers are worth up to 10 times as much as their first purchase. And the final one that I have there is increased referral. Your customer service can really turn your customers into brand advocates, people that will be talking about your brand, how happy they are. And word of mouth is the primary factor behind purchasing decisions. So definitely value in, just giving customer service the tools to be able to achieve those goals. And an extra one that I have there has no source. This is just me saying that customer service can give you so much valuable feedback. You might have other departments in your company trying to figure out who's my best customer, what should we be creating next, what services should we be offering, and customer service knows. So if you're giving them the tools to really digest that feedback that they get and pass that on to other departments, everyone will benefit from it. I'm going to end the poll there. We're very 50-50 on yes or no for customer retention being the main obstacle. Quite interesting. But yeah, I think a main thing here is that maybe you're looking at those benefits and thinking, well, I have a customer service department, but we're not really looking into achieving those goals. So maybe it's because you focus on your customer service in customer support, in the support part of things. So I want maybe Ken and then Ari can add on as well. Just explain a bit of the difference between your customer support and customer success. Because I think what we'll be doing here is reinventing customer service and kind of showing that customer success part of things a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to kick us off. So on a very simple level, the primary difference between support and success is that support is reactive and success is proactive. So in support, you're relying on people to reach out to you if they have any issues or questions or needing help. And then customer success, you're changing that mentality and you're reaching out proactively to your customers to provide them with support. And also the nature of the support is a little bit different. So when we're talking about customer success, a lot of the ways that we can make an impact is about the context. So what is the customer dealing with? What is their specific industry, their function? What are the best practices or the use cases that relate to what they're doing? And then support often is just more like, is the solution working? Is your product or your service just working in the first place? Or is it working the way that I think it should? Like, what are the specific features or functionality? So to boil it down to those 2 points, it's support is more reactive and success is more proactive. And then support is more about just, are we at the baseline of whatever I'm paying for in terms of a product or a service? And success is more interested in best practices, use cases as they relate to your specific industry, function, and so on.
Great. Yeah, so I think that's why now we're going to go to actionable tips. So all those that proactiveness that customer service can have. So let's get our pen and paper ready and go to our first section with that team. So the first section that we have here is about your inbox. So the place where you're getting all that customer communication in and what you can do with that. And I'm going to release a second poll here just because I want to know how are you guys dealing with your customer communication? Are you using a customer service app? Are you using a CRM, an email inbox? Or if you are using something else, pop it there in the chat as well. And the reason why we're asking is just to have an idea, but all the tips that we'll be giving here, they can be applied in all those different platforms that you're going to be using. So I'm going to pass it on now to you, Ken, so you can cover that for us.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Great. So with regard to commercial opportunities, we've got this problem and solution. So the challenge or the problem that you might be facing is that there's opportunities to sell more, to upsell and cross-sell to your prospects and customers who are in touch with your customer service team. So really incorporating support and success here when we're talking about CS. So we'll just use that as the shorthand going forward instead of your sales team. And the reason why this occurs, by the way, is that oftentimes customers just feel more comfortable engaging with people who are not in sales. So with sales conversations, there's sometimes this undertone of, well, I'm talking to you and maybe you're trying to sell me something. Whereas if they're engaging with your CS people, then you don't have that sort of undertone. But that being said, you still have this opportunity to relay that information and get those opportunities across to your sales team. And so that's really what we want to do, is make sure that we have great lines of communication, that your CS team knows when these opportunities are coming up, and then getting those across to the right people to take advantage of them. So next slide, please. And we can go forward a bit. Great. So let's look in a couple of different arenas. So first off, with prospects. So these are people who might not be paying you just yet for your product or your service. First of all, you want to maybe take a bit of a longer term view. So if questions are coming through to your CS team, then maybe try to find the underlying reason why somebody might be asking about help or trying to get some help. So what is the use case? What are they trying to accomplish in the very first place? So maybe don't just solve the surface level problem, but try to dig a little bit deeper and understand what are the underlying challenges, concerns that this customer might be facing with their business, and do some discovery. And that kind of leads into the next area, which is flagging these prospects over to your sales team and having them actually do more of a formal discovery conversation with those leads that might be engaging with you. So this process in of itself is not that complicated. It's pretty simple when it comes to just like, let's convey things over to our sales folks. But what I found in my own experience is that the bigger challenge is actually building the muscle memory. So just really making it a habit, a continuous habit, so that all of your CS people are really of the mindset of, let me keep an eye out for these potential opportunities from leads that are coming through and make sure that I'm consistently passing them over to the right people on the sales side. Next slide, please. And then with regard to existing customers, this is another great opportunity to uncover what are these places where we can sell more, upsell, look for upgrades, things like that. And so this is really twofold over here. So the first part is to start with a CS conversation, so a customer service conversation, and you can decide whether or not to include sales. And as I mentioned earlier, having sales in the conversation, maybe it's not the right tone for the conversation to begin things off. You want to talk to them, solve their problems, not come across as, okay, we're trying to sell you more. And so maybe you want to take that conversation on your own to begin with, and then loop in sales separately. Or you might want to have a tag team approach if they are very explicitly saying, well, we are thinking about adding more seats to our subscription, or we're thinking about buying more because we're facing XYZ challenges. Then maybe it does make sense to like, let's speed things up. Let's have sales as part of that conversation so we can help you with your current set of challenges and your current solution, your current investment, and then sales can talk to you about increasing your investment and what are the possibilities there. And then on the second point below is making sure that we are just staying organized, and we're tagging, we're categorizing, we're just keeping all this information in a central location so that we can refer to it. So maybe there might be a list in your CRM or your system of record where you can just have a folder or a place to find, here are all the different opportunities that have come up within our existing customer base. And then you can have the right people go out there and just explore those opportunities, go through that list, make sure that you're not leaving behind any of those opportunities that have been uncovered by your CS team. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then another challenge that you might face, or another opportunity rather, that this is probably a better way to look at it, is just mentions of competitors. So maybe competitors are coming up with your prospects or even with your existing customers. That is always a bit concerning of, hey, if customers are being mentioned, maybe there's some risk here that we might lose our existing customers. And your CS teams are really going to be the main receivers of that feedback and that information. And as Letitia mentioned earlier, this is just information that's valuable for everybody, not just the people on the CS side or the sales side, but certainly if you have a product group or if you have a marketing team, like these are all useful bits of information that is really going to make your business more effective. And so what we want to do is set up a process to be able to like categorize and index and just get all this feedback together and then get it across to the right folks onto the sales side of things. So next slide, please. So we've got some organization tips, and I mentioned tagging conversations before as a great practice. And within Help Scout, which is our help desk tool, we do have tags, and this is a great way of just identifying, here are the things that we want to organize, and then I'm going to be able to reference them, search for them, and find the information in the future. Now, when these instances come up, then it's great to identify patterns. So what are the things that are coming up when it comes to customers, and like, how big is the customer? How much are they paying us? What sort of industry are they coming from? What specific aspects of your solution are being called out? So are there features that people are saying, like, this competitor is doing it better, or they're doing a great job over there? Are there things in your own solution that you might want to consider when it comes to your own roadmap of, maybe we can add this thing to our own product or our own service? So just think about ways of categorizing and bucketing things so that you can figure out, like, maybe this is a big, meaty area for us to explore in the future. And the way that you can do so, it could be as simple as just a spreadsheet, maybe an Excel or a Google Sheet, and then compile that information, that feedback there. Make sure you have a table that's set up and maybe have some of these different columns with the contract value of the industry and so on. And then make sure that you're reviewing it with all the teams that can take advantage of this information and make use of it, and just analyze it and take some action on it on a regular recurring basis, maybe monthly or quarterly, once you've compiled enough of this information over that time frame to be able to get like a nice sample to refer to. Next slide, please. Great. And then another area of opportunity is superfans, or your raving fans, your customer advocates. So you might have certain people who are really supportive of your product or your solution, but you're not identifying them, or you're not taking advantage of the things that they are sharing across to you. So what you want to do is, first of all, build up your super fan base, make sure that you have some of them in place, and then actually have that relationship. And then they can really be so beneficial when it comes to some of the efforts that you're trying to do as a company. So next slide, please. How do we do this? Okay, so we have this nice graphic that shows us some of the ways that we can think about it. So I'm going to start from the top left, which is identify. What makes a super fan? So some of the characteristics that you can think about, one of them is just, if you reach out to them, they respond back to you. That's a very simple one. If they're responsive, then that's always a good sign, because these people are more engaged, more plugged in compared to some of the other customers. And maybe there's some ways that you reach out to people, something like a customer satisfaction survey or other types of surveys, and they're responding to you, they're providing you with feedback. That's a great way to figure out, okay, these are folks who might be interested in supporting us and just publicly helping us spread the good word about our business, our product, and our service. Now going into, and then some other characteristics of what makes for a super fan. They can provide specifics about why is your product or service helpful, beneficial, features, functionality. How does it really help them specifically? So it's not just, I like this in general, that's not that helpful, but it's just, I like this because it's helping me in X, Y, Z areas. Then that's great. And then one last thing to consider here when it comes to identifying your superfans is that they might be familiar with alternatives, competitors, or other types of solutions that are out there, but they're still loyal to you because of whatever combination, magical combination of features and price point that you have with your solution, and they're going to stick with you. So those are all great things to keep an eye out for. And then going into the top right bucket, so how do you make those customers and create more of those superfans? Make sure that you're responsive. So going back to what I mentioned a bit earlier about, like, when you reach out to them, they respond back to you. The same goes for your side. So if they're reaching out to you, they're asking for help, then make sure you're getting back to them in a timely fashion. Try to provide a solution if you can. If you can't provide a resolution, at least acknowledge and let them know they've been heard, and something is going to happen at some point, even if it's not right away. I think that's a really important part of cultivating your fans and your advocates within your customer base. And then this might seem very obvious, but certainly increasing the value of their investment with you. So whatever they're paying you for your product and service, if you're making that more valuable, either adding new features, new benefits, things like of that nature, then of course people are just going to be more loyal. It's like, great, I'm paying this amount, but this keeps on improving over time. I'm going to stick with this company or with this service. Going into the bottom left corner, which is asking for reviews, case studies, and testimonials. So make sure that you're doing a great job and you're continuing to promote those features, functionality, and services that you're offering. And don't be afraid to ask for their feedback. We do this quite a lot here on the Help Scout side as well. So are there reviews that can provide, testimonials, case studies? You want to provide something and then ask for something in return. That's a great way of being able to create engagement with your customers. So maybe you've rolled out a new feature or aspect of your solution, and then you have some resources that are going to help your customers take advantage of it. Maybe you have some articles or some videos or a blog post, something that they can use to get up to speed on this new thing that has increased the value of their investment, going back to the last point that I was mentioning. And then you can ask for something in return. Those reviews testimonials and case studies. And then the last quadrant there, which is the reward side of things, is offering a benefit to customers to become advocates can be really effective. Maybe you have an affiliate program where they can refer other customers, so affiliate and referral programs are a little bit different, but kind of similar sort of idea of having them spread the good word of mouth, like Letitia was mentioning earlier on. And then other types of rewards that you can consider, maybe swag, like clothing items or other bits of things that you can share and gifts to your customers. Gift cards, that's also a pretty popular incentive. And you can, like, I've seen actually, this is pretty common in a lot of places of, hey, you leave us a positive review on a website like a G2 or Trustpilot, something like that. And then we're going to give you a little gift card as a thank you for doing so. So those are some of the tips that I have about those areas.
Thank you so much for that. I think superfans it's just so interesting. I've watched a series before about superfans, and sometimes you might think like, that wouldn't work for my business. I wouldn't have someone that into it. But I've watched a series where they had superfans for a bank, a coffee shop. So, for people to be fanatics about a bank, for me, is just mind blowing. So I think it's the sky is the limit really for superfans, and it is something that anyone can try to achieve as well. Thanks for that, Ken. So we're going to move on now. So we've been talking here. Ken is kind of covering the bits when the customer comes to you. But I want Ari now to talk about when you go to customers. So how can you unlock their revenue post sale? What type of customer you should be going after, to nurture that relationship a little bit further, when you should be doing it and how as well. So Ari, if you want to take over.
Fantastic. And Ken, great job. I actually learned a lot from you in your segment. So thank you. So for this segment, I'm going to start by discussing how your CS team can unlock revenue opportunities post-sale from existing customers. And in doing so, generate more informed, authentic, properly placed conversations for sales to increase revenue from them in the future. So let's talk a little bit about how and when to do that. So the way I've gone about it is to, there's lots of strategies here, but I've chosen to focus on 5 so as to not overwhelm. Maybe 5 is even too many, but here we go. So the first one is to use your success resources on high value customers. That can be through the initial value of their first sale. Or it could be through an evaluation of the size of the business and their likelihood for them to increase their spend with your product or service in the future. The second is engage sales opportunities once value is achieved and ROI or return on investment is measurable. So if you have, let's say, a customer success manager who's building and fostering that relationship with the customer, they're deeply understanding their use case and what they aspire to achieve with your product or your service. They can identify the right point in time based on outcome or value achieved that can table set a very authentic and rewarding conversation between your sales team and the customer in the future. The third is to invest time with customers to understand lost revenue. So this, honestly, I've seen is often overlooked, but investing time with customers to understand why an item was returned or why a service contract was canceled or a subscription churned, or a customer is even just decreasing their existing spend to something less, collecting feedback and having a framework to collect it is crucial. The fourth is keep sales involved even if they're not actively selling. So don't be afraid to involve sales in non-sales conversations, if possible, along the customer journey. So this I've seen accomplish a number of things. So it shows that the sales rep is listening before acting on a sales conversation. It shows that sales is actually invested in the customer by continuing to learn about what is yielding value for them. It generates actually internally more strategic conversations between your customer facing and your sales teams about when and how to engage a customer sales opportunity. It also enables your sales org to sell more effectively to prospects by understanding understanding what's taking place with customers further down the journey, giving sales that experience of what things are like 180 days after they actually bought from you can actually help them take that information and sell more effectively to prospects to generate more new sales. There's also ways to bring sales into these CS-led conversations to be a fly on the wall, like frameworks as to how to introduce them. It could be project kickoff calls, customer handoffs, quarterly business reviews, new feature and product discovery calls. There's so many different types of touch points. You'd have to make it unique to your business. The last one is to share tools cross-functionally and integrate them as much as possible. So whether that's your CRM, your support tool, your marketing stack, or whatever your business operations stack is, it's vital that you're doing your best to generate a customer 360 throughout the journey so that documented customer engagements across all channels are accessible to all teams. By doing this, you mitigate like a classic situation of a sales rep reaching out to a customer and them having no idea, the sales rep having no idea, that the customer is either in the middle of or recently had a support request that was unsatisfactory. That's not going to be a very beneficial sales conversation. So, Letitia, we can dive a little deeper into 3 of these 5 key strategies just for sake of time. So you can move to the next slide. So let's talk about using success resources on high value customers. So you might decide customer success managers or account managers only work with customers who pay a certain amount for your product. This can be based on the revenue acquired through the new sale. So your business wants to make sure that the revenue is retained, and having a success team deployed to customers that meet this minimum revenue threshold that your business designates helps protect revenue by having your success org focus on maximizing return on investment with these customers and also working on generating future revenue opportunities for sales. The other way to look at it is you might decide to have your customer success resources deployed based on the size and scope of the business. So working with a larger business to realize the value of using your product could lead to more revenue down the line. So just to give this one as more of an example, you might close a lower revenue sale, but it's with like a mid-market or enterprise business, an identifiable brand as an example. So that's actually a gold mine revenue opportunity for for increasing revenue post-sale, So by engaging a success team on these types of customers, you can really help the business understand their ROI on their initial smaller investment and see what future opportunities may be on the table for them to grow their business by using more aspects of your product or service. You can move to the next slide. So let's talk a little more now about engaging sales opportunities once value is achieved and ROI is measurable. So before any future revenue opportunity can really present itself, delivery on the initial use case and value that the customer is looking to achieve that led to that sale is the first step. So here, things like time to value, onboarding, product or service education become paramount to even creating the possibility of a future sales opportunity with an existing customer. It's the success team's job to deliver on these things, document them well, and use it not just to continue to provide great service and value to the customer, but to identify whether that customer has more potential to increase their spend. Breaking down customer outcomes into measurable steps and goals is crucial. So in doing this, it enables the success team to better understand the time horizon of the customer, uncover their vision for future end states beyond their initial implementation or setup with your product, and make measuring value along the way more bite-sized. The momentum you can generate by breaking down time-based goals and initiatives with your customers is fundamental to any project delivery. But what it also does is it sets up really rewarding conversations between customers and the sales team, as those medium and long-term visions of grandeur that these customers might have at the outset could be tied to requirements for the customer to spend more with you to unlock those additional features, products, or services you offer to get there. This all cues up timing the engagement with sales. So your CS team needs to be true advocates internally for your customer base and speak on their behalf internally. So when your CS team basically needs to be empowered to lead this conversation internally and strategize with the sales team about when to engage. That way, when they can engage, the timing becomes everything. The sales team needs to be in a position to engage with the CS team to strike while things are hot. There's nothing worse than not taking that momentum when it presents itself and moving quickly on it. You can move to the next slide. The last one that I'll dive deeper on is just understanding lost revenue. So a customer you lose revenue from is still very much worth your time. Engage with that customer that you lose your revenue from. Don't just do it through casual conversation. That's definitely better than nothing. But it's important that you invest in a framework to collect, digest, and analyze data from many customers, as well as look for common patterns to identify opportunities to improve, whether that's your process, your product, your messaging, et cetera. Or even suggest adjustments to the persona of your customer you're acquiring as another example. This, again, will help sales sell better based on the knowledge that you're gaining from the revenue that you're not retaining from those sales. So by sharing this type of information with your sales team, while you're losing the customers very costly, what you can do is use that information to improve the sales team's selling strategy, to continue to refine who you're selling to, and improve future cohorts of customers that are going to be more successful for using your product in the future. So that's all about improving future cohorts. We can move to the next slide. So switching topics a little bit and going more into community. So there's existing customers and prospects that are talking about your brand or about the problem your product or service solves, and you're not part of the conversation. So the solution here is to invest in community. So by creating a sense of community around your business, you're unlocking a major opportunity to really foster a strong sense of belonging between your business and your customers, but more importantly, between the customers themselves. And there's a lot of value here. So this unlocks both quantitative and qualitative insights to track and measure your customer base, act on feedback, and be transparent and open with your customers. We can move to the next slide. So you can look at creating a community like in a lot of ways. I'll just kind of break down two. So I'll briefly touch on like building a presence on social media and engaging with your prospects and customers on those channels. Not really a customer service type of conversation, but I think very important to better understand how you can leverage it and how a CS team has a vested interest. The other one is in investing in a community platform for greater visibility, control, and engagement on your customer and prospect communication and interactions. So we can briefly talk about social media. We can move to the next slide. So social media platforms are obviously some of the most highly trafficked platforms on the internet. Your business needs to use that as an opportunity to have your own brand participate on the right platforms that are relevant to your business. So you're in front of your prospects and customers, even if they're not directly engaged with your product or service. So the big thing here is to focus on the social media channels related to your target industries and customer persona. These could be Facebook groups, Reddit forums, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and more, TikTok. But it's very important to pick a very finite number that you believe is where your customers are doing most of their participation. Building an audience is so difficult, and the social media landscape is very expansive. You need to invest on the right channels. The last thing here is to leverage your customers' advocacy and insights with your product and share it. So customers will often share it with their network if they're featured, and the authenticity of the content when the customer shares it is way more valuable. So if you can go to the next slide, I'll just show you two examples. So this just, is one step further. It just goes to show like public customer advocacy speaks more than a lot of the content that your business is actually producing to attract, acquire, and retain customers. And the best part about this is this is free. Your customers are just doing it because you've generated these types of advocates that are now sharing it with their own networks. Can move on. So now we'll kind of switch to the meat and potatoes of this segment and talk more about community platforms. So community platform can be an unbelievable new channel for your business to enhance the prospect and customer experience by having a hub to share company information and updates or events, and enable customers to interact directly with employees of the business, and enable your customers to communicate with and interact with each other. The best part of it all is it's under your brand with more transparency, accessibility, and the ability to analyze and act on things much faster. You can move to the next slide. So by having a community platform strategy in place, you can do a number of impactful and insightful things through business to customer communication and interaction, customer to business communication and interaction, and customer to customer communication and interaction. So I'm just going to quickly run through a bunch of these examples. Yeah, you can move on, Letitia. Thanks. On the business to customer side, I'll just highlight a few examples. So you can deploy your customer self-serve knowledge solutions, such as your knowledge base, tips and tricks, developer documentation, and more. Community platform gives you the ability to track page views, reactions, replies, and leverage documentation to provide more insightful answers to questions from your customers. By having your self-serve knowledge solutions hosted within your community, you're creating this one-stop hub rather than a series of disparate places your prospects and customers have to go to collect this information about your product or service. Hosting your self-serve knowledge information in the same place or channel that someone can also interact with you socially enables you to aggregate not just the information you put out to your customers or prospects about how your product works or why it's valuable, but also listen to your customers in terms of what they think, what they want to learn more about, and where they might need more help. You can move to the next slide. Okay, perfect. So communicating product or service updates is another example. So you can track and measure reactions, replies, sentiment level from your updates and the announcements you make about your product or service. So by communicating these updates in a channel directly with your prospects and customers, this further validates your investment in your product, helps you iterate on future improvements through the reactions and the replies that you get, and it clarifies any uncertainties with how things work from the end user's perspective. All this information can be super valuable to your support and success teams, preparing them with documentation to harness after the product's been updated, but it also helps with revising sales pitches and value propositions, as well as marketing materials that might support your sales team closing new business. The last one in this area is you can announce and manage online and in-person events and get people talking about it. Track things like event attendees, knowledge gain for the event, share the recording, and more. You can move on to customer to business communication. So you can enable customers to share feedback and ideas about your product or service. You can track and measure feature requests and suggestions, upvoting from other customers and prospects, and engage in discussion and unpack use cases from prospect and customer ideas and more. So by enabling your customers to have a place to share their ideas, even interact directly with employees or even your leadership team at your business with their suggestions, you're fostering relations by listening to them. And the gratification your customers get when they see that idea in the community turned into reality by maybe a product update that you put out that relates to it is extremely powerful and valuable. And it also shows that your business delivers on listening to your customers. Next slide. Other use case here is you can set up like a beta or an early access to new products and services with a smaller segment of power users or key prospects who can give you early insights before releasing a major feature, introducing a new product or new service. And really this allows you to leverage experimentation with product messaging, sales messaging, your customer documentation that you've produced to support it. And it basically enables you to better understand how your customers will receive this feature or this change to refine your messaging, documentation, and sales pitch. And finally, on the customer to customer side, you can do things like enabling customers to show and tell. So let your customers talk about what their business is, why they're using your product or service, and what value they're getting out of it. Enabling customers to engage on that content that's being shared can help you decipher future revenue opportunities from them. So this is like similar to a showcase or a case study that you might have on your marketing website. But it's more informal and it's more authentic because it's the customer that's actually putting out the content themselves and initiating that conversation with other customers about sharing it with them. The second is you can set up and ask for help or support space. So you can enable your customers to both search for more unique questions, find best answers provided either from the business or from a fellow customer. So as much as your self-serve documentation helps, it can't cover every edge case or point of potential confusion or misunderstanding for your customers. So by also giving them a direct place to pose their questions, it helps further clarify more unaccounted for situations with your customers, and it's hosted alongside your self-serve documentation. It also helps you to identify who some of your power users might be that are helping other customers that are posing questions, and really enables you to look below the hood with more what's going on with your customer base. Finally, allowing like-minded people with shared interests to connect with each other under a particular topic or purpose. So having a community really enables you to have a unique type of transparency into how your customers interact with one another. Those conversations between customers or users can be more valuable than their interactions with your business in a lot of cases. So that's kind of everything. It's a lot to digest, but there's a ton of opportunity with community-oriented approaches. Thank you to everybody for listening.
Thank you so much for that, Ari. There's definitely lots of value in really like creating your community, and people do engage, as we were saying with superfans, like if people like your product and they find other people like-minded, they will be engaging in there. So it's definitely very valuable. Just a reminder, as you said, we're giving lots of information, so it can be a bit overwhelming. And I just want to remind everyone that we will be sending you a recording of this webinar tomorrow via email. So don't worry, you'll be able to review all those tips, make your notes and share that with your team as well afterwards. So yeah, we're coming to our last section before our Q&A. So we just want to share a few little hacks, a few tools that you can use to just help you save some time and be more productive. Because you might be looking at all those tips and thinking, this is great, but the person that is maybe doing sales is also doing a bit of customer service in your team. A lot of times with SMBs, people are wearing multiple hats and you're trying to manage everything at the same time. So we have to be smart with the tools that we're choosing to use. And I'm actually curious to know, so I'm going to launch our last poll here just to see how sync do you think that your customer service and sales teams are? And maybe you only have one team that is managing both departments. And, with the tools that we'll be showing you here, I think that can help with that sync, just make things a little bit more smooth. And if you have one team, just how they can manage all those things as well. The features that we'll be showing here, of course, they are with our platforms, OnePageCRM, HelpScout, and Tribe. It's going to be super quick, and that doesn't mean that you have to be using those platforms. There are other platforms out there, but those are the features that you should be looking out for when you're looking for a solution, because they can really help you there. So I'm going to move here to the next slide and just show you, as I think we kind of kept saying there, Ari and Ken both said it. It's really important to have one place where your customer service and sales teams can collaborate. So, as Ari said, there's nothing worse as a salesperson calls someone and they actually just sent an email with a complaint to customer service and they're not aware of that. So making sure that both your teams have a full picture at all times is really important. So it's definitely important to have that place there for them to work on. Another thing super important is to look for team collaboration features. So, in here, for example, in OnePageCRM, I guess, we are all about actions. So just setting up tasks and with contacts. So every contact always has the next step to move in the customer journey. So let's say with Leslie here, for example, I work in customer service. Leslie called with a few questions. She's a prospect and she seems ready now to move on to be sold to. So I can just notify her there, notify that call that I had to someone from the sales team, and then assign a task to that person in sales. So rather than annoying them in the office or sending them an email, there's our inboxes are already out of control enough. So it's good to have one place where you can put all that information and everyone can collaborate on as well. And the third thing here from my side is with pipelines and reporting. Of course, your sales team and your customer service team, they have different KPIs. But if you have all those KPIs there together and both teams can see them, you can make sure that you're walking towards the same goal. And with your pipelines as well, you can push all your sales process that doesn't end when the sale is done, passing on to customer service, and really find those bottlenecks. So where are you losing revenue? Where are you missing on opportunities? And that can really give you that full picture. I'll pass it on to you now, Ken, if you want to cover those here.
Yeah, definitely. So I wanted to show you all a few things that you can do within Help Scout. But that being said, I also wanted to make sure that all these points would be relevant to you if you're not using Help Scout at all. So these are just certain principles. And if you're using other tools or solutions, then just keep these in mind. So the first one goes back to that proactive side of customer success, just reaching out to people before waiting for them to reach out to you. So within Help Scout, we have a feature called Messages, where you can proactively message and engage with your customers or users. And we've just recently rolled out in the past couple of weeks a feature to send an NPS survey. So NPS stands for Net Promoter Score, which is one of the more popular methodologies that are out there to reach out to your customers, get their feedback about would they recommend your product or your service to somebody else. And we also have a bunch of other survey options that are available in Help Scout. So surveys, again, customer service, customer satisfaction, a great way to proactively engage with your customers. Next slide, please. Okay. And then the thing that I'm showing here is a feature in Help Scout called Save Replies. So Save Replies are templates, pre-filled templates is a simple way to think about it. And of course, there are many other solutions that have a templatized feature. So what you want to do with Save Replies or any other templates that you might be employing is just have them all set up so you can address commonly recurring questions or topics, and your team doesn't have to spend extra time and effort solving those common requests. And you can really make these as rich as you want to. So if there's links to self-service resources like articles or videos, or even, hey, we're doing a class coming up, or we're doing a webinar coming up, here's the place where you can sign up for it, kind of like how you ended up over here, then that's a great way to incorporate those as well. And certainly you can employ these for more of those commercial, more of those sales or marketing opportunities that might be coming up as well. So Save Replies or templates if you're using some other solution. And next slide, please. Great. And then the last piece I want to touch on in terms of features functionalities is workflows, which is what we call some of the automations that we have available in Help Scout, but certainly, again, other solutions have these ways to streamline doing multiple things at once in one click or one action. So in Help Scout, the way that we have workflows set up is that you have manual or automatic workflows. So manual workflows are triggered by somebody who's on your team, your own team member, whereas an automatic workflow is kind of like what we're looking at right now. So it's looking for certain if criteria. So in this case, like, is there an email address that it's looking for? And then are all the actions that are going to be taking place automatically. And so this is a really great way to just streamline activities that, again, might take multiple steps, multiple clicks, and just do those in one go. So some examples of how you might employ automations, workflows, if you're working in Help Scout, or automations if you're working outside of Help Scout. Maybe you want to set up a folder structure so you can park relevant conversations, emails that you're getting from your customers, and have those in an organized place. Our own support team over here at Help Scout uses a manual workflow in order to notify our relevant sales folks about, hey, here's a commercial opportunity that you might want to take a look at, and they're going to get pinged and they're going to be able to check it out because they've received that notification. And then one last tip is to use your automations to look for high priority or high urgency keywords. So maybe there are certain questions that have come up about billing or plans, or just some of these things that might raise your radar a little bit of just, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I want to flag that and take a note of that. And then you can, again, prioritize those, add those to a folder, or notify the relevant teams to take a look and take some action on it. So all areas when I'm talking about customer surveys, with some of those templates, or with automatic workflows, these are all things that you can do in Help Scout, but certainly you can do those outside of Help Scout as well.
That's great. Thanks for that. And I'll move on here. We have one for Ari as well to cover.
Yeah, I'll keep it pretty brief, but like Ken mentioned, like, this is kind of agnostic to Tribe specifically, but more about community platforms in the market in general. they allow you to integrate with a myriad of third-party tools through most community platforms, including Tribe, offer their own app store. So you can integrate with service desk tools and CRMs, whether it's in Tribe's context, Intercom and HubSpot and Zendesk and Salesforce. And then even through using Zapier to connect Tribe with apps like OnePageCRM and HelpScout, for example. And some of like the outputs you can get here are basically enriching the customer's profile information and their events of what they're doing in the community, and putting that inside of your CRM and your support tools so that you have that customer, you're enhancing that customer 360 on the other touch points that you're generating through your engagement with your customer in the community. You can also do things like, enhanced notifications, to messaging tools like Slack, for example, so that your sales and even your support or success teams, they don't have to go into the community every day and manually check activity. They can be pinged inside of the actual tools that they're using to do their jobs every single day, and they will know when to reach out and actually have to go and engage with the customer. So there's a lot of options here. I just wanted to give you a high level picture.
That's great. Thank you so much. So yeah, we got all our tips there done. I'll move on now to questions, to our Q&A. I can see the chat there, but I don't know if we have any questions. Maybe Anastasia, you've been looking through the chat there. Maybe Oh, you have. Very efficient. She has all the questions there. So we have there first question from Scott. Any modifications for these approaches if I am both customer support service and sales, so no separate team? So that's an interesting question there, as we're saying about when you're wearing multiple hats, I guess. So who wants to take that one?
I can start, and maybe Ari has other things to add on to it. I think that actually simplifies things in some ways. Of course, there's an extra burden because you might only be one person doing multiple things, wearing multiple hats at the same time. I think the principles are the same, but maybe you don't need to consider as much like the information transfer part, just because all the information is in your part. So what you want to think about is just what's the easiest way for me as the one person team doing everything to organize this information so that I know where to go when I'm taking off my CS hat, my service hat, and putting on my sales hat. I still know, okay, now I have all this information housed here. It's categorized in this way. So just maybe you don't need to think as much about like building in the processes or the mentality to work cross-functionally with other people, but doing so like with yourself and handing things off when you're switching that mindset yourself. I don't know, Ari, if you had anything to add on there.
I was going to answer very much along the same lines. Like at the end of the day, you're going to have to be a little bit of a chameleon here. And I do agree that it does in some cases, it is easier because it is all kind of you. It is important, again, to make sure you're segmenting out those conversations so that you're wearing the right hat at the right point in time. You can still build a customer journey. You can still build those critical touch points you want to have and when, whether that's just you or a very small number of people, or whether that's a larger org where you can siphon off these responsibilities. In some cases, it's actually a lot more simple.
Great. I'm going to just say, I think as well, all those tools can really help. Anything that you can automate when you are both your customer service and your sales, you should try to do that just so you keep things going and you have a bit of a set and forget there to nurture relationships, as many relationships as possible. We have another question there from Scott. Suggestions for framework for collecting data on lost revenue, churn, etc. I think you covered that, Ari. So if you want to.
Yeah, Ken, I would love for you to add on to this one. So I think there's information that you should have about the customer that you shouldn't need to ask them. So that's kind of step one. So do you know their industry? Do you know like what level of service they were looking to get from your product, or how many of your products they've purchased? So there's a certain amount of information that you want to get so that you can understand why you're losing your revenue by different segments. The other thing is, as you kind of cast that net, if you just start doing it, you then need to kind of pull it in. And like I said, look for patterns, similarities, and consistency so that you can actually start to have future conversations that you can categorize and place into buckets. So are people leaving because they think your product or service is too expensive? Are they leaving because you're not delivering on a particular type of feature? If you're a software provider, is your platform like really slow and you can't keep your customers because the pages don't load fast enough? All of these types of things should be categorized again, and then that should be categorized into, let's call them reasons with descriptions is a good place to start, but then tying it to the information you're actually collecting earlier so you can put it into segments, whether that's by industry, size, amount of money they're spending with you, et cetera.
Yeah, completely echo all those points. Great points that Ari just brought up. And we use a similar methodology over here at Help Scout ourselves of just what are the trends that are popping up? Like, are people leaving the service just because it's too expensive, for example? That might be something that's coming up. Or is it because there's certain features that they're missing? And then you can use that information to then inform, okay, well, maybe we're lacking these features. Could we build something here? Or could we do a workaround? Or is there some way for us to get there? And once you're getting those categories in place, like Ari was mentioning, then it's like, okay, here's the biggest area of concern or churn or losing our customers or sales leads to competitors. Then you can figure out the best approach to then solving those. And you don't like, of course, we want to solve everything, but maybe picking and choosing the one or the two most important things that are standing out in terms of that lost revenue is a good starting point for you.
Amazing. We have another question there from Larry. He's asking, how could you visualize this support/success relationship in a B2C company that has no sales, so only a marketing team?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the principles are pretty similar. Like sales, I suppose is more of a direct, perhaps one-on-one sort of an interaction, whereas marketing is a lot more of like a one-to-many. And even if we take a look at Help Scout, like we have a very robust marketing function. All the ways that we've grown as a business and gotten growth and gotten people to use our service is through our marketing efforts. So I think if you swap out the sales bit with the marketing bit, a lot of the same principles would apply. I don't know if there's like a huge difference between those two sorts of things, but I would be interested if you're thinking, Larry, of, okay, here's something with our marketing team that's different from how a sales team would function, then we'd love to hear it, and maybe we can provide some more specific advice for you. Great.
Anything to add, Ari?
Yeah. So like the way I kind of look at this coming from the world that I know is like, it would be more what I call kind of digital or low touch customer success, where you're predominantly focused more on workflow automation and data analysis more at scale. So like your support team, would still, I don't know what your product or service does, but let's say it's an e-commerce direct to consumer business. They would still deal with, shipping and returns. That's kind of like what your support team would deal with. Whereas your success team would be, more involved in, a little tighter, much more tighter with the marketing team on what are patterns that create repeatable customers. When we do a new product launch, how can we look at how our customers using the product to get the messaging out to the right people? And so on and so forth. And again, like a lot of the similar things, how can we generate brand advocates and customer advocates so that we can actually authentically attract more people to our business through those positive customer interactions?
That's great. Thanks for that. We have another question here. I love this one. If you were a 10-person startup, how would you go about starting your customer success department?
Wow.
Can you have a big smile there?
Yeah, that's such a fun challenge. That's an exciting journey that you're getting kicked off on. I think you want to consider what is the model that you want to approach with your customer success, because there's different approaches that are out there. So to give you a few examples, some places will have customer success and they are just helping your existing customers with their existing investment and solution, but they don't have any commercial aspect to it. So they're not trying to upsell, they're not trying to grow that existing customer base. Other places do have more of that commercial mentality of you, customer success team, you're managing a certain book of business, and we want you to grow the recurring revenue that's coming out of that team. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider as well is like kind of touching on what Ari was mentioning about like that scaled approach and working one to many rather than one to fewer. That kind of depends on your customer base as well. So do you have a few big customers? Do you have many small ones? Is it somewhere in between? And that can be another way to think about, well, what are the activities and responsibilities that our function is going to have? So I would think about it in those two aspects of just, first of all, what is the approach that you want your customer success team to have? What should their goals be? And then secondly, what is the, where was I going with that? The other piece about like what is our customer demographics? What's the makeup of our customer base? And those really go hand in hand. So those are pretty related to each other.
How about you, Ari? Any tips on how to start your team?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question in a completely different way because I thought Ken gave a good answer. If I was doing this, I would start with hiring somebody with a little bit more experience in the customer success field than you think you need. And the reason why I answer it that way is because I've seen this at a lot of startups where success for the first X number of years or X number of customers is really kind of just this glorified kind of support team. And it really takes them that time to Ken's point at the beginning of the webinar, turn into that kind of proactive, value-driven engine that everybody wants their success team to be. By having a more experienced person that you invest in, I think your path to getting there is likely to be much faster. That would be my advice.
Nice. Yeah. So you aim high, but you establish your foundations first.
Yeah. And that person needs to be a little more experienced and be willing to get their hands pretty dirty too.
Yeah. Great. We have another question there. Okay, we're getting deep now. So what are the ethics of paying people with rewards and gift cards for reviews?
I mean, I can try to answer this one. I mean, like incentives for things are typically fine. Like in the context of, Tribe, when we do it mostly with customers that we have direct relationships with. So there's like a built up relationship before something like that comes up. But I think so long as you don't make it too expensive and you kind of keep it something that is obvious that the business can turn around and deliver on it should be fine. I've never really heard any bad stories doing it unless you're trying to give out like a $25 gift card to 10,000 people. That can get pretty complicated.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. And there are, like, if you look at certain services, so let's say that you're using a reviews website like a G2 or something like that, they will say like, this is there was some sort of, I forget how they call it, but like a promotion or something like that. So there is some indication of like, there was some compensation that was provided to the person to leave this sort of review. But again, I think that if it's nothing big, like it's just like a small thank you, I don't think there's any major ethical concerns that go into it. You're just rewarding people or incentivizing people to want to leave their feedback. And when they might keep that feedback to themselves, you're just encouraging them to share it with the world more publicly.
Yeah. Can I just say, I think as well, sometimes we think that we will have to, pay people to do it because they're not just going to do it for free. But I do think that having that mentality of, I'm just going to ask, I gave them a good service, they have a bit of time and they will do it. Like, I think sometimes we're just a bit too afraid to ask things, and people are willing to give good reviews and to feel like they did something good as well. So yeah. I think it doesn't have to be necessarily a paid one. We can always just try to get a freebie first. Any other questions, Anastasia? Let's see.
So we don't have any more questions.
Cool. Okay, so we covered it all. I will have a look at the comments there as well after and make sure that, if anyone asks for anything, we can address that in the post-webinar email as well. But yeah, any last statements from you guys? A goodbye, happy Halloween message?
Yeah, maybe one last thought from me is that I'm sure everybody here is already familiar with sales-led, marketing-led, product-led growth, some of the ways that you can grow your business and drive more sales and more revenue and making investments there. But customer-led growth, which is pretty much what we've been talking about today, that might be an area that you're underinvesting, underutilizing. And it can be more effective and more cost efficient. And we all know nowadays, like the general economic sentiment, maybe not that positive. And so looking for those avenues and those opportunities within your existing customer base can be just a better approach than going into other areas like sales or marketing, which can be oversaturated and more expensive than they used to be.
This is great. Thank you. And Ari?
Yeah, kind of the same cloth there. I would invest in your sales and CS teams understanding and having their own view of the entire customer journey and kind of going end to end from the top of the marketing funnel through the best and greatest advocate or the customer that you've lost. That creates kind of that single source of truth that allows everybody to kind of evolve on a string wherever they are. And it doesn't, you don't build in silos either as your org starts to scale.
That's great. So I think that's us. We talked about ethics, we talked about customer return, we talked about so much. I loved it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ken and Ari. I had lots of fun putting this together with you and now presenting as well. So thank you so much, and thank you everyone that joined us today.